lesson from history. In fact, this time a lesson from ancient history, another little book from my shelf. Incidentally, I've got over 1,000 books and I've given hundreds away. I inherited some from my dad, I bought many. This one is actually from a friend, Penny Howell, and I've promised to send it back to her. She teaches ancient history and the history of Rome and Greece. This is Livy's accounts. Of course, Livy has his angle, but this is a history that goes way back. The history of Rome. We're still living out the history of Rome. If you look at the influence of a Greco-Roman culture on our world today, you look at Washington that's been modelled on Rome with a little bit more space to play around with the structures and the great edifices and the obelisks and everything else. But Rome has had a profound impact on our whole world today. It is a system which Daniel described as a ravenous beast that was acquisitive by military means. Most famous character in history, incidentally, let's just say it's Julius Caesar. There is less evidence historically for Julius Caesar by far than there is for the Lord Jesus, and his life, death and resurrection. So those who say, oh well, we don't have much evidence for Jesus, and yet they're quite happy to imbibe all the stories about Julius Caesar, just put that in your pipe and smoke it. The fact is, Julius Caesar was a dictator. He destroyed the Republic and set up a dictatorship that started with the triumvirate with Crassus and Pompey, but eventually he toppled them, or Crassus went too far east and came to his demise. Pompey was murdered on the beaches of Egypt. Julius Caesar conquered Africa and said, Vine, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. The lesson from history is that all paths of glory lead but to the grave. The boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, even the great power of Rome was brought to an end. And God uses dictators to display his power. It says in Romans that I have raised up Pharaoh that I might display my power. Nebuchadnezzar came and was reduced to a brute beast, eating the grass of the field before he came to the recognition, which was then sent out through all his satraps, that God is sovereign, that God is the creator of the heaven and the earth, that man is not God. So this imperial cult that was set up by Julius Caesar, that he as a man could be worshipped instead of God, brought untold misery, brutality, corruption, all within the wonderful cloak of democracy and of looking after the citizens of Rome. But because there was no grounding in God's law, God's purposes, hope in God's promises, it ended out as just yet another empire of world history. Of course, it's still, the shadow of Rome is still with us, but through fear of the neighbour, the Roman city-state conquered the Latins. Then through fear of the rest of Italy, conquered the rest of Italy. Then through fear of the Sicilians, conquered the Sicilians. Through fear of the Carthaginians, conquered the North Africans. And then through fear of everyone around the Mediterranean, had to conquer all of these territories. The growth of Rome was not out of some sense of righteousness and goodness and the growth of their power. It was greed and fear, and it expanded its horizons. And as we know, Julius Caesar went up into Gaul so that he could make his name, so that he could eventually return and cross the Rubicon and say, the die is cast, alle jacta est. He may have encountered Vercingetorix in Gaul, but he conquered him, and he ended up in Rome. But et tu, Brutus, even Caesar came to his end.